In this video, we are going to work through each and every question type that you will find in the speaking section of the PTE academic exam. But before we start, there are a few points that I would like you to keep in mind. First, please follow the timers and the instructions that you see on the screen. So when you see the instruction to speak, please speak and keep within the time limit that you see on the screen. A review of the question and sample responses you will find after the test questions in the end of the video, so please wait for that. Record your voice in your mobile phone or on your PC, but make sure that you save your answers so that you can compare them to the sample responses. If you are new to PTE and you've just started learning, or this is one of the first few videos that you are seeing, then please watch the introduction videos and other practice videos first, and a link to them you will find in the description of this video. Alright, with that, let's start. Next question. Next question.
So you've all heard discussions of the population problem, and it's really two different problems.
Let's go to the next question.
Perhaps the oldest and most fundamental question that I wish to examine in the course of this semester is the question, what is a regime?
Let's go to the next question now. Okay, let's go to the next question. Next question.
So last time we spoke about the collapse of the Roman Empire, and I didn't quite definitively answer the question, external force, internal collapse. There are other possible explanations. An eminent historian of the barbarians says that the Roman Empire committed suicide by accident. That essentially was just a political problem. The wrong people became emperors, some bad things happened, and one day, there it was gone. Not sure I buy that. I like long-term causes more. But it is important to emphasize that a lot of this is contingency and not inevitability. Historians generally tend to make things look as if they had to happen, as if they're sort of long-term things playing out inevitably. And the longer or the farther away the historian is from the period that he or she is studying, the greater that tendency, because the look back is longer.
Let's go to the next question.
But let me talk about this very famous example and dramatic one of Hippocrates on the sacred disease. By the sacred disease, he meant epilepsy. And it looks, I guess, if you wanted any disease that looks like a possession by a demon, it is epilepsy. And Hippocrates wants to tell us that this is not a supernatural event or a possession. He says instead something extremely different. What he tells us is that it is thus with regard to the disease called sacred. It appears to me to be no wise more divine or sacred than other diseases, but has a natural cause like other afflictions. Men regard its nature and cause as divine from ignorance and wonder. And this notion of its divinity is kept up by their inability to comprehend it. Neither truly do I count it as a worthy opinion to hold that the body of man is polluted by God, the most impure by the most holy. For were the body defiled, it would be likely to be purified and sanctified rather than polluted. Those who first referred this malady to the gods appear to me to have been just such persons as the conjurers, mountebanks, and charlatans are. Such persons, then, using the divinity as a pretext and screen for their own inability to afford assistance, have given out that the disease is sacred.
Next question.
Which season has higher temperatures?
Next question.
In a marriage, what is the female getting married referred to as?
So with that, we have looked at each and every question type that you will find in the PTE academic exam. I hope you have saved your responses. So let's go ahead and review. The first question, read aloud. This is what the transcript was. Let's hear a sample response.
Although Serbian language authorities have recognized the official status of both scripts in contemporary Standard Serbian for more than half of a century now, due to historical reasons, the Cyrillic script was made the official script of Serbia's administration by the 2006 Constitution.
So the key here is how you chunk the sentence, how you group the words together, where you raise your voice, where you lower your voice, and which words you emphasize. Let's look at the second read aloud question. This is what it was. Let's hear a sample response.
Some bakeries provide services for special occasions such as weddings, birthday parties, anniversaries, or even business events, or for people who have allergies or sensitivities to certain foods, such as nuts, peanuts, dairy, or gluten. Bakeries can provide a wide range of cakes designs such as sheet cakes, layer cakes, tart cakes, and wedding cakes.
Again, please note how the words are grouped together, how they are chunked, where the speaker paused, where she raised her voice. Those are the kind of things that you have to do properly, along with speaking in a natural pace, because you should come across fluent. Please feel free to pause the video or go back and listen to the sample response again. Make sure that you compare these sample responses with your responses. That's how you will learn and improve. Third question, repeat sentence. This is what the sentence was. Let's hear it.
So you've all heard discussions of the population problem, and it's really two different problems.
So usually the repeat sentences, they're quite short and there's not enough time to note down anything. So please focus on understanding the meaning of the sentence. And if you have to take notes, it's fine to write down, the beginning of one or two difficult words, so that when you are repeating, you can look at them and that will refresh your memory. Let's go to the next repeat sentence. This is what it was. And
Perhaps the oldest and most fundamental question that I wish to examine in the course of this semester is the question, what is a regime?
all right. So again, focus on listening, on understanding what the speaker is saying. If you have to note down just a little bit and then speak it naturally. You don't have to repeat it, you don't have to copy the speaker. You just have to repeat it in the most natural way possible. The next question, describe image. This is what the image was. It's a graph showing the populations in different regions of the world, different urban regions from 1950 to 2050. Let's have a look at the sample response.
The graph shows how the urban population has changed and is projected to change in various regions of the world in the century between 1950 and 2050. The world urban population has been steadily increasing since 1950, when it was at 30%, and is expected to reach 70% in 2050. More developed regions of the world had more than 50% of the population living in cities, followed by Latin America and the Caribbean at 40% in 1950, which in 1990 became the highest of close to 80%. In 1950, Asia and Africa had similar 15% populations in urban areas. Asia and Africa are expected to grow at similar rates to reach 60% in 2050.
The key to answering these kind of questions, you first have to give an overview. So the first sentence here, it gives an overview of what the graph is. But if you see, the overview, it's not just reading or paraphrasing of what was written there in the title. It's a smart overview. It says how the population has changed and also is projected to change in various regions of the world. And it doesn't just say between 1950 and 2050. We use the word in the century between 1950 and 2050. So, doing something like this shows that you have a greater language range, and that definitely helps you score better. After that, there's it shows the sentence, the world urban population has been steadily increasing, and then it's expected to reach. So, we're also mentioning the trend, then there are comparisons, and in the end, what you can do is, if possible, you can draw a conclusion again based upon a trend or on the overall information that you are seeing in the graph. So usually you will have an overview sentence, then you will have two or three key points, and then if possible, you can draw a conclusion or you can make a projection based upon the graph. So always remember that. That's what you have to do in the graphs. Again, if you have to pause, please pause the video, look at the transcript properly and compare it to your response, because that's how you will learn and improve. Now, let's go look at the next describe image question. This is what it was. It was about antitrust fines that China imposed on various companies, various Chinese companies and various foreign companies. And it also shows the amounts of those fines in RMB, the Chinese currency, in millions of dollars. Let's look at a sample response.
The picture shows two graphs, one showing the antitrust fines paid by some large companies in China, and the second shows the fines paid by Chinese versus foreign companies. It's immediately clear that the foreign companies paid more than 3/4 of antitrust fines amounting to 2,394.9 million RMB, while Chinese companies paid 648.6 million. In the companies list, Sumitomo Electric and 9 other part suppliers from Japan were made to pay the largest amount, i.e. 1,240 million. Audi from Germany was next and paid 1/6 of that amount, followed by Mayotte from China, Wolangai from China, Danone from France, Biostim from China, LG and Samsung from Korea.
Okay, the key things to notice here, first, of course, there is the overview sentence. Then when you look at a graph, if there is something that immediately, you know, strikes out, for example, in this case, in the pie chart that you're seeing, it's immediately clear that the foreign companies, they pay a significant larger share of fines compared to the Chinese companies. So that becomes, immediately one of your major points, right? After that, what you look for the highest and you look for the lowest. And the other points. For example, there are a number of bars between Sumitomo Audi and Samsung Korea. So if you spend, if you try to read out each and every bar and the amount there, then you will run out of time. So that's why what the response does in the end, it groups a number of those companies, a number of those points together. So saying from Germany was next and paid 1/6 of that amount, followed by Maotai from China, Wolingai from China, Denon from France, Bosch Team from China, LG and Samsung from Korea. So you don't mention each and every point amount. You don't make a separate sentence out of that. You put them together in one sentence. So what are the key takeaways here? That of course, focus on the overview. Second, if there is a point which is significantly larger or any piece of information that stands out in particular, then quickly, speak about it, because it is going to be one of your major points. Then look at the highest points, look at the lowest points, mention them, compare them. And then if there are a large number of points, then try to group them together as we have shown in the
Let's look
sample
at the
response.
next
In
question
the
now, the
last
retail lecture.
sentence. This is the transcript of the lecture we had heard, and let's hear a sample response.
The lecture is about the causes of the downfall of the Roman Empire. Some people think the empire collapsed because of internal events, such as the wrong people coming to power, but the lecturer believes it was due to other long-term causes. However, he also mentions that historians often tend to look back and justify the way events turned out, though in reality it is not always so.
Similar to the described image, in a retail lecture also, the first thing that you will speak about is you will give an overview of what the lecture was all about. And in this case, it was about the collapse of the Roman Empire. After that, when you are listening, you have to pay attention. Make sure you take some notes. When you are taking notes, don't try to write down everything, otherwise you will miss out on understanding what the lecture was about. So take some notes. It's about what specific information the lecturer is discussing. In this case, it was the causes of the collapse, whether these were long-term causes, whether these were the internal reasons, or it was a political problem. So you need to have an overview sentence, and then maybe 2 or 3 points, which are the key points which the lecturer talks about. Please feel free to pause and hear the sample response again if you need to. Let's go to the next retail lecture, the transcript. This is what it was. It was about Hippocrates and his opinions on epilepsy. Let's have a look at the sample response.
The lecturer talks about what Hippocrates thought about the so-called sacred disease, what epilepsy was called back then. According to Hippocrates, there was not anything supernatural or sacred about epilepsy, as he felt that God would never make a human body impure, but rather remove out all impurities. He felt that those who call the disease sacred are fake experts trying to hide their ignorance.
Alright, again, if you notice, the first thing that the sample response has is an overview. It tells us that this is about what Hippocrates thought about epilepsy, the so-called sacred disease, and then his opinions that he didn't think that it's a supernatural event. Okay, and he says that those who think that it's a supernatural event, or those who say that it's caused by God, that they are actually hiding their inability to treat the disease. Okay, if you have to, as I always say, please feel free to pause the video. It's important that you understand, you compare your responses with the sample responses. Let's go to the next question, answer short question.
Which season has higher temperatures?
So that was your question, and the answer was summer. Summer has high temperatures compared to winters and other seasons. The last question, that was also an answer short question.
In a marriage, what is the female getting married referred to as?
And the answer is the bride. See, you could have also just said bride, but it's always better to not miss the article. So if an a, an or the can go before the word, make sure that you speak it out. So that was a speaking test to help you prepare for the PTE academic exam. Stay tuned, subscribe to the channel for more videos, more practice tests. Do check out the surewayenglish.com website for more help with your PTE academic exam. All the best.